Did you know that our earliest ancestors were cannibals? Well, yes, but not in the way you might think. In fact, they were actually eating their own kind. And I'm not talking about some serial killer going around murdering people and feasting on their flesh. No, I mean literally eating the remains of people who died of natural causes. Welcome to my channel. And today let's find out the untold story of the first humans. Our species, Homo sapiens, has been around for about 300,000 years. But up until 10,000 years ago, we lived in small groups of nomadic hunter-gatherers. We didn't settle down in one place for very long, and our average lifespan was around 35 years old. So most of us never got the chance to grow up and become, full-grown adults. In fact, there are very few physical remains of our early ancestors, because most of our population consisted of children and teenagers. That is, until the last ice age ended about 11,700 years ago. When the climate warmed up, plants and animals began to flourish, and with that, so did humans. This was the start of the Mesolithic period, which lasted until around 8,000 BC. During this time, humans started working with stone tools and weapons, and they also learned how to domesticate animals. However, during the Mesolithic period, humans hadn't yet invented pottery or agriculture. They were still living off the land and surviving by hunting wild animals and gathering wild plants. And it was during this time that something strange happened. Humans in what is now Israel started burying their dead with full-on burial rituals. It is pretty clear that they were undoing this for any religious reason, since religion as we understand it would undevelop for thousands of years. Instead, anthropologists believed that they were burying their dead out of fear of losing their souls. But here's where things get weird. The bodies were buried with grave goods, which are objects placed with a corpse for use in the afterlife. The grave goods range from simple stone tools to more complex items like jewelry made of bone or stone. But the strangest thing was that these grave goods were often placed inside a secondary burial. What does that mean? Well, instead of burying someone directly after they died, the body was kept for several years, likely in a cave or other protected area. Eventually, the flesh would be picked clean by scavengers, leaving only the bones. Then the bones were collected, possibly ground into a powder and mixed with the dirt. Finally, the remains were placed in a new tomb with grave goods and then covered over. So why would they go through all this trouble? Why not just bury the body normally? Well, scientists think it is because the early humans believed that the soul or some other vital part of the person was still present in the remains. By grinding the bones into a powder and mixing them with dirt, they were essentially scattering the remains as fine as possible. This way, the soul or essence of the person could be released and move on to the afterlife. But this practice wasn't unique to Israel. Anthropologists have found evidence of secondary burials and bone grinding as far away as China and Japan. This suggests that early humans all over the world had similar beliefs about the afterlife. They feared that the dead could somehow harm the living, and the only way to prevent that was to scatter their remains as fine as possible. Of course, the only way to do that would be to grind the bones into a powder. And the only way to do that would be with a mortar and pestle. The earliest evidence of mortar and pestles in human history date back to the same time period, around 12,000 years ago. Scientists have found many of these ancient tools at archaeological sites in Israel, China, and Japan, all places where early humans practiced the strange custom of burying the dead and grinding their bones into a powder. Some scientists even believe that cannibalism played a role in this. After all, early humans were known to eat the remains of dead animals, and they had no qualms about eating other parts of animals that we consider inedible today, like brains, eyes, and tongues. So it is not really that much of a stretch to think that they may have also eaten the remains of their dead. And if they were already eating the remains of their loved ones, it makes sense that they would want to grind the bones into a powder and mix them with dirt. That way, they could be as fine as possible and release the soul or essence of the person. What do you think? Was cannibalism really such a big deal back then? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.